Any specific chord progressions or modes or things that you find yourself getting into? Or
I like even this kind of like major, minor, melancholics. That's just what I always tend to go towards. I'm like the trip hop guy. I always feel like I'm always there with these kind of minor chord but bright, pretty songs. Darker,
yeah,
darker but hopeful. That's like kind of always the what inspires me as a producer, and the writers I work with, it inspires them too. Sometimes I have to work on bright pop ideas, which is kind of hard for me, but it's a challenge too. And if I write a record with my attitude and it's a bright pop major chord song, it's also going to sound interesting because I've done it. It's like something different than a straight bright pop record, like you might hear from Nicki Minaj or uh, you know whoever else, Chappell Roan or Olivia Rodrigo. She has such dope ass records, and they're punk leaning, pop punk, and that's a whole different generation that leans towards that. So I'm always listening to how genres come back and
is
reemerge.
is there any specific trick? Like, I mean, before you shared something, it was the thing you were doing 10 years ago, like the twisting the samples and stuff. There are other two or three go-to things you did over the last 2 decades that are really your signature or sound and to show to the students.
Well, I think starting with pitch bending because that was something I was so fascinated by. It's something you can't do until I had a DAW. You can't just do that with a sampler or like a MPC. You can now. Um, Using distortion as a friendly method, like putting guitar rig on everything, as long as it's clean, it always gives you fucking some sounds you're like, wow. 2025 is me using Suno and putting the most random prompts in. Like, give me put acapella in there and say, I want hyper pop and I want it in Japanese. And I get it. And I fucking fuck it up. And it might be terrible, but that's something I would never do on my own. But I love the idea of fucking coming up with these random things that you just can't think of. These tools are helpful. When I do those synth patches and those those pitchy vocal bends, that also inspires me to make a record. Um, but honestly, it's I've come back down after being doing this for 25 years. It really comes back down to like being in a studio with somebody, coming up with a melody line that's like gives you goosebumps, or a synth patch that can be artificial like this, but it's like kind of like wow. And then you hear that at a club when it comes in this part only, and you hear the crowd without drums. That's the goal, or where you're now when it first comes in, you hear the first part of Justin's voice, or you know. Another thing is like when I work on LSD with Albert Garcia, and those songs come from just really rough scratches, and it's like my job for 2 years to kind of like find the sounds that are going to be what's 2026 sound like. It's never about what's happening now because it takes 5 months for a record to find its way
Of
to
course.
release. So you got to honestly predict the future a little bit. And then if you don't have it, you wait a little while longer. And then when you're ready for it, sometimes things just catch up to you.